So for the March 2020 Great Film Throwback Day, we're going to be talking about a film that I was actually very excited to finally see. And more so, my wife was more excited for me to finally see this film because of the fact that it's one movie that she always talks about, and every single time I told her that I never saw it, she still couldn't get over the fact that I didn't. But now, that's all officially in the past because we are going to be talking about the 1989 film Glory, starring Matthew Broderick, Denzel Washington, and Morgan Freeman. This is a Civil War story that revolves around Robert Gould Shaw, who was the colonel of the first volunteer troop of the Union Army that was African American, Infantry 54. And the whole story is about how he comes back from the Battle of Antietam and is told that he is now given a very important task, which is to get free black men to join the Union Army and fight for the freedom of all black men as well as defeat the Confederates. So, expectations were high. I had heard a great deal about this movie, more so the performance that got Denzel Washington the first of his 2 Oscars. And when Denzel Washington finally shows up in the film as Private Tripp, oh, believe me, I totally get it. What an incredible, realistic performance from this man. I mean, the iconic scene where he is getting lashed for being accused of being an AWOL soldier, and when he is just staring at Matthew Broderick's character, and just you see the pain in his eye and the solitary tear fall down his cheek, but he is trying to show his strength as best as possible. It is everything that embodies this incredible performance from Denzel Washington. Such an amazing sight to see, but the rest of his performance is absolutely wonderful. Everybody in this film is fantastic, minus a couple of people here and there. Quite frankly, I kind of feel that Matthew Broderick was not the strongest actor in this bunch, but quite frankly, I understand why they cast him to play Colonel Shaw, because when you actually take a look at pictures of that young man, he looks exactly like Matthew Broderick. It's kind of uncanny. There also were a great deal of surprises acting-wise in this cast. I didn't know that one of my favorite actors, Cary Elwes, was in this film, and probably my favorite character in this film is Robert Shaw's friend, Thomas, who is played by a very young and unknown at the time, Andre Braugher, Captain Holt from Brooklyn Nine-Nine, and what a dynamic performance he gave me. But the movie as a whole is also a very interesting story, because it's not so much as showing you the glory of war. And for me personally, as someone who is not really the biggest fan of war movies, though that sort of seems to be changing with all of the innovative films that have been coming out revolving around war these days, Glory definitely took a step back from the battles themselves and really wanted to focus on the creation of this volunteer infantry and the camaraderie that these soldiers learned. And I don't know why. Maybe it's because of the fact that Denzel Washington was in this cast that I got some very serious Remember the Titans vibes. I really hope that doesn't offend anybody, but I sort of felt that way while I was watching this group of black men come together and show the pride of America and fight those battles for the sake of defeating the Confederacy. I also really appreciated the whole concept, not just of the fact that it was whites taking a look at black men and also seeing some of the racial inequalities there, but I think one of the most important things that was also shown in this film was the differences between the black men, particularly between Private Tripp and Thomas, because Denzel Washington came from a group that was enslaved. You could also see a lot of anger in his eyes. But he always gave a hard time to Thomas because Andre Braugher's character was a very different black man at this time. He was the son of a free man. He lived in Massachusetts, where black people were free at that time, and he was brought up just as well as some of his friends that were white. He spoke better, he was educated, he dressed fancier, and because of the fact that some of these black men saw him, they called him a pretty boy. They said he was truly not one of them. So it was such an interesting dynamic to see, and I also feel that it's important for everybody to see that when it came to people looking down on one another, it wasn't just black versus white. And you still see that, unfortunately, today between the social classes, and it's not a good thing to know that after all these years, after the battles of the Civil War have been fought, we're still seeing these differences, and we're still seeing these inadequacies up between the haves and the have-nots. This movie also was beautiful. I mean, I know that it was up for a great deal of effects awards and cinematography. It was definitely a beautiful film to watch, as well as a very good score from James Horner. Not one of his best, but definitely a good score. But if there's one thing that I could say that was bad about this movie is that I enjoyed it, but I didn't really get what I wanted out of it. To me, there were points in time where it felt like an extravagant war epic worthy of an Oscar, and then there were some scenes that just made it feel like it was just a regular film that was not even going to get acknowledged by anybody. It was such a mixed bag of atmosphere, I guess you could say, and the package itself wasn't entirely perfect. Like I said, Matthew Broderick, unfortunately, was also one of the reasons why this movie got dragged down just a bit, just because I really didn't appreciate his performance. I think that it was a little underdone, and when you compared it to the performances of Denzel Washington, Andre Braugher, Morgan Freeman, and even Cary Elwes, you really didn't get much from Matthew Broderick. And it's sad. This movie wasn't even nominated for Best Picture, and that's also a pretty sad thing, because movies like these usually do get nominated for Best Picture. But at the end of the day, Glory is definitely a very well-done film. It's definitely, like my wife says, a movie that should be shown in American history classes showing the Civil War, because the fact that black men did volunteer to fight for the Union and to abolish slavery is something that people really need to know more about. But is this a movie that I'm going to want to see again? It's not something that I am going to be excited to see again, but if I do get a chance, I definitely will. But it's not a movie that I'm going to want to add to my DVD collection. I will, however, say that I am so glad that I finally saw Glory. I definitely think it is a movie worth of everybody's time and a real important one to watch. But as a movie itself, to give it a good rating, I will give it an admirable 2.5 stars out of 4. So thank you very much for watching, everybody. Please leave your comments in the box below, and let's discuss Glory, and I will see you in the next one. Hey, thank you so much for stopping by my channel today. If you're new here and want to see more of what my channel has to offer, please click on the link to my last video, or hit that subscribe button to be kept up to date with all of my uploads. Content of all sorts is posted here quite often, so trust me, you do not want to fall behind. I will see you in the comments, and actions speak louder than words.